Someone gives you an answer, and your brain immediately asks why. Not to be difficult, not to argue, just because the answer feels incomplete, like a door that is not fully closed. You were probably the kid in class who asked the teacher to explain the rule, not to break it, but to understand where it came from. People told you to just accept things you never quite could. They called it overthinking or being difficult, or not trusting the process. But here's what nobody said out loud. You were not being difficult. You were being honest. Your brain simply refused to take the world at face value before anything else. You're not too much. You're not exhausting. You're not broken for needing things to make sense. The world is full of people who accept things without asking why. And the world is also full of people who built better things because they did not. Your questioning is not a flaw, it is a signal. Something in you is always oriented toward truth. That does not need to be fixed, it needs to be understood. Think about where questioning was born in you. For most people who question everything, it started very early. Maybe the adults around you said one thing and did another. Maybe the rules kept changing without explanation. Maybe love felt conditional and you could never quite figure out the conditions. So you started asking quietly at first, then louder, then constantly. The questioning was not intellectual at first, it was survival. It was a child trying to map an environment that kept shifting beneath their feet. Understanding why things happened felt like the only way to stay safe. The mind that questions everything was once a mind trying to predict everything, and that is not a character flaw. That is a very intelligent response. To an unpredictable world, there is something people who question everything share. A deep discomfort with blind trust. Not distrust exactly, something more specific. An inability to hand over their judgment without understanding what they are handing it to. This shows up everywhere. They research the restaurant before booking. They read the terms before signing. They want to know who built the system before they agree to live inside it. People call this skepticism, but it is actually something quieter. It is a need for informed consent in every area of life. Think about someone starting a new job. Most people follow the process. The person who questions everything asks, why is the process built this way? Not to disrupt, to understand, because to them, understanding is not optional. It is the only way they can fully commit. People who question everything are often acutely sensitive to contradiction. They notice when the words do not match the behavior, when the explanation does not fit the outcome, when the story has gaps. This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. The mind that was raised in environments where things were not as they appeared develops an extremely fine-tuned radar for inconsistency. It learns to listen to what is not being said as much as what is. Think about how this shows up in relationships. Someone says they are fine, but the tone says something else. Someone says they support you, but their actions say otherwise. The person who questions everything catches this before most people do. It is not suspicion. It is fluency. A fluency in the language that lives underneath language. But here's the part nobody mentions. The questioning is not just about the outside world. It turns inward too. And that is where it gets complicated. People who question everything also question themselves. Constantly. Am I doing the right thing? Do I actually believe this? Is this feeling real? Or am I performing it? Did I make that decision freely? Or was I conditioned to? This internal questioning can be exhausting. It can make simple choices feel enormous because every choice gets examined from every angle before it gets made. But there's something beautiful in it too. People who question themselves deeply rarely act without self-awareness. They are less likely to cause harm unconsciously because nothing they do is unconscious. The self-questioning is the conscience doing its job, loudly, relentlessly, without a day off. At the bottom of all the questioning, there is a need for things to mean something. Not just to function, but to matter. People who question everything are rarely satisfied with surface. Small talk feels thin, routines without purpose feel hollow. Relationships that stay shallow feel like rooms with no furniture. They want to know what a person actually believes, what a job is actually for, what a life is actually building toward. This is not idealism exactly. It is closer to hunger. A hunger for substance. That polite surface cannot satisfy. The question is always the same, even when the words are different. Does this mean something? Or are we just going through motions? This relationship with questioning changes with age. In your 20s, it can feel like a burden. Everyone else seems comfortable with accepting things with not needing to know why. You wonder if something is wrong with you, if you will ever feel settled. By your 30s, something shifts. The questioning starts to feel less like a problem and more like a compass. You realize the questions led you somewhere, to beliefs that are actually yours, to relationships built on real understanding, to a self that was examined. Not inherited. The questioning never stops, but the shame around it does. And that changes everything. For the person who questions everything, understanding is not intellectual. It is emotional regulation. When something is unexplained, the nervous system stays alert, on guard, waiting. But when something is understood, even if the answer is difficult, the body settles, the breath slows, the mind stops circling. Understanding is the anchor in a world that often does not explain itself. The question is not just curiosity. It is the mind reaching for solid ground, trying to find something it can stand on before it agrees to move forward. So here you are, the person who always needs to know why, who cannot just accept it, who asks one more question when everyone else has already moved on. That has probably made things harder sometimes, you know that. But it has also made things realer. The beliefs you hold, you actually examined them. The people you trust, you actually chose them. The life you're building it consciously. Not everyone can say that. The questioning is not something to overcome. It is something to understand. It came from somewhere real. It protected something real. And it has been pointing you towards something real all along.